I wonder who decided that the Zoom voice needed to match my Siri voice, because they're the same.
It sure sounds like, but it's a good idea, I think.
That way I'm not confused. I don't have another woman yelling at me. Oh, hey, everybody. This is Teddy Burriss. You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy, and our special guest today is Katherine Miller. Katherine, I raised 4 daughters and I have a wife, so I'm speaking from experience. So thanks for joining us. We do this every Wednesday at noon. We go live at 11:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every day, and we invite all of you to join us in the green room at 11:55. You never know what the conversation is going to be about. So hey, I'll tell you a little bit about me, then I'll introduce you to my buddy, my partner in crime here. Again, I'm Teddy. I work for a company called Burriss Consulting, social media strategist focused on LinkedIn as a business tool. We love helping individuals and corporations and sales teams who want to get more out of LinkedIn every single day. So thanks for joining us. Randy, would you introduce yourself to our friends?
I will, but first I have to comment and compliment you on those glasses, Teddy.
I'm styling, ain't I, buddy?
Yeah,
styling.
Turn to the side. Let's get a better look at those. That's kind of neon orange, man.
A little bit. I'm trying to get the best glasses. I got a drawer full of glasses, man. I got to find the right glass for, and that, by the way, these are not cigars. It's just the box I use with all my glasses in it. So
I get it. Good deal. Hey, Randy Wooden, work for Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, and I run our professional center. So we help folks, as you might expect, typically, with degrees, maybe in salaried roles, leadership roles, maybe they've owned their own company, that kind of thing, and are at a tipping point where it's time to look, either because you were asked to leave due to COVID or whatever, or you just decided, hey, you know what, it's time to put my toe in the water. Our services are free. We're happy to help. And I'm excited. Actually, this week we have a topic that's relevant to a lot of my clients with the Professional Center, because a lot of them are over age 40 and facing ageism. So our guest today is Katherine Miller of Notable Career Studios, joining us from Louisiana. Or is that Louisiana? How do you say that?
It's definitely Louisiana.
Louisiana. I like that. All right, so we'll go with that. But our topic today deals with ageism and this whole digital job search. How do folks north of age 40 contend with ageism? How do you recognize it, deal with it? How do you knock it out of the park? And one thing I really like about Katherine, we're going to turn it to you in just a moment, is you have a psychology background and also a bit of a legal background too. I think you said you're a paralegal. So, there's a lot of subjectivity in a job search. And ageism and other isms and biases that come into play can impact whether or not you get asked, do you want the job? So let's dive in there. But first, we have a little housekeeping. I know, Teddy, you want to take care of business, right?
Yeah, in my to-do list, Randy, I missed that housekeeping item. I just checked it because I'm doing it now. Hey, everybody, I'm going to monitor chat. And Randy started this philosophy. I'm really not going to monitor Q&A. I'm going to monitor chat. So if you have any question or any comment, please drop it in chat and I will raise it up to our esteemed panelists and our special guest for conversation. Back to you, Randy.
Yeah, and actually too, I'd like to know where you're watching this from.
Oh, yeah.
We get different cities, different countries and whatnot. So always interested to see how folks are learning of us. And here we go. Thomasville, Winston, we've gotten them from all across the country. So joining us again, Katherine Miller. Katherine, tell us a little bit more about you and sort of what you got here to talk about today.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much. This is really an area pretty near and dear to my heart because I'm over 40, but I have made multiple career transitions myself, having been in several different industries. And I know how difficult it is for people to position themselves well in the very brief time that we have to make that first impression. And a lot of mistakes that I see people make and a lot of the things that I hear them say really go against best practices and set them up sometimes for failure right out the gate. And so I started this company because my background in psychology and my graduate training in psychology really opened my eyes to say, there's a better way to do this. If you start out on the right foot, your chances of landing a job just or exponentially better. And so many people just don't know why they're doing the things that they're doing, or why professionals are advising certain best practices or things to do to your resume. And I find in this field, in the career field, there's a lot of confusion because it's not a regulated industry, obviously, like law or psychology, where you have to get a license. So there's tons of information out there. And I started this so that I could help people who were transitioning. I primarily work with C-suite, and I work with people trying to get into C-suite. And I work with a lot of women and minorities who are trying to break through barriers that really defy convention. That's very exciting to me. It's a passion of mine. And I love giving people the tools and the knowledge to land where they really feel they belong. They have a calling, they feel they belong there. And the other thing that I do is help job seekers who are making transitions or maybe entering the second phase of their life. And they think, you know, I'm not done, right? I'm 60, I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm not done. I thought I would be done, and I'm not. I feel like I'm 20, but I don't know what to do. And I don't know where I belong, because their priorities are very different at 50, 60, even 40 than they are when we're 20 and 30, right? We have young families, maybe we have different needs. So I really want to give that knowledge to them and help them build roadmaps and find places where their new self belongs, so that they can make the impact and leave their legacy for the entire world. That's my why. That's what I do in a nutshell.
Was there a tipping point in your career, or a point where you said, hey, this is where I need to be, and really pursue this line of coaching?
You know, actually, there was a tipping point. I think when I realized that this is something that I felt very passionate about, this was not my first path. So originally, my path was in forensic psychology. And forensic psychology, of course, is all about learning how people, well, those people usually manipulate other people, but you know, why we're suckered in and how the brain works and things. So I started down that path, and because of life situations totally beyond my control with my family, I ended up in a field that I did not love, but I was able to succeed in, which is a situation that a lot of my clients find themselves in, or 40. And I believe you talked about it, Randy, on another episode where you said, look, what if I take a gap job and end up stuck there, or time goes by and I don't notice? What happens then? And that is very common. I think with everybody, you know, we take a role, we think we'll get out, and then we find ourselves to be 40 or 50 and go, this is not where I want to be. So I found myself at the top, like many of my clients, thinking, you know, I appear to have everything that I should, but I do not enjoy my life. This is not how I want my life to be. And because I had made so many transitions, people would come to me and have me redo their resumes, or they would talk to me about, hey, how do I answer this question? I want to look this way. What's going to make this person think that? And finally, that side gig turned into, I said, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to put people where they want to be and where they will thrive, where they belong, because that's how the world works best, when we're all working at our maximum capacity. And so at that point, I ditched my job and I created my business, and it really took off after that. I don't regret it.
Very cool. And what really interests me is, in particular with you, is the psychology piece of this thing. And because we can talk all day about, well, leave off your dates of education on the resume. You know, it's fine. You've heard that a million times, right? Okay. But I think we're going to dig a little deeper into the psyche and the mindset here of not just the job hunter, but also being able to read, or to be able to understand sort of the perspective of the employer, and how we can interact with that to hopefully overcome those challenges. So I'm excited about that piece, because that's something we touched on three times over the last couple of years on our show. But it's a reminder I think we all need to have, and especially as we graduate into our 40s and older, it's stuff we need to know.
Yeah.
We weren't born with this knowledge necessarily, and a lot of it is trial and error, and as we screw up, we learn. But if we can learn from somebody like you, I think it might save us a little bit of frustration and rejection at times. So first off, our topic is ageism. We're talking with Katherine Miller of Notable Career Studios. So let's define ageism first. So let's talk definition, defining it. What is ageism from your perspective?
So from my perspective,
Yeah.
and of course, this isn't legal advice. So if there's lawyers out there, I realize there is a definition, but from my perspective, from my perspective, ageism is when people make a snap judgment, hold something from you, whether that be a promotion or based solely on the assumptions that they make because of your age. That is ageism. And I feel like the definition of ageism is very important. Clarifying what is and is not ageism is a huge hurdle for a lot of people who are over 40, because unfortunately, we assume that if we interview, it's very easy to say, oh, they didn't hire me because I was older. And that actually, that mentality will hold someone back. So it's very important to recognize the distinction between ageism and whether you're qualified and have the up-to-date skills for the job. So that's kind of a big thing that I run into a lot with clients.
The legal definition of ageism, according to the EEOC.gov's website on age discrimination, I couldn't find the definition of ageism, but age discrimination involves treating an applicant or employee less favorable because of his or her age. Randy, I don't really think you were doing that to me earlier.
Was I? You're speaking to my good ear. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, buddy. Back to you guys.
Too many concerts back in the day. So, all right. So we've defined ageism. And I hear this a lot from clients. And I don't want to call it an excuse. Maybe we could use it as an, I don't know, maybe it's an excuse, but I hear that so often, Katherine. I didn't get the job, but I tell you, once I walked in there, I just felt like I was behind the 8 ball. It just didn't seem to go as well once they saw me, or once they did a Zoom call and could see my face. And, the resume, we can hide things, a number of years and education dates and so forth. But ultimately, they need to talk to you. And so whether real or perceived, the end game is I didn't get the job. And so now where do we go from here? So you mentioned in your notes to us about obliterating ageism, navigating today's digital job search according to science. So where's the science come in? Let's explore that angle. Talk about science.
So here's where the science comes in. The science comes in several places. First, the science comes in how people as a whole, as a group, tend to react and how we make judgments about whether other people are safe or not safe, because that is our immediate instinct. And there is a plethora of research on this. There are definitely some agreed upon universal behaviors that we have that we all perceive as either threatening or less than ideal, and others that we perceive as friendly and opening, and we tend to trust those people. So going in, there's always a science of bias, and that I don't mean that in the way of our conscious biases, but just in the way that humans judge whether their environment is safe and whether the person they're talking to is a person that they can trust to help them. There is a ton of science on that. And the second aspect is the science behind how we process digital information. In our generation, and anyone above me as well, we did not grow up. I guess you didn't. I hate to admit this, but we did not grow up with computers and technology. I mean, I remember when the internet was born. That ages me a lot. Can't believe I'm saying that, but I remember when it was not a thing. And what's happened is there's a lot of science behind how our brain processes digital media differently than print media. Before, you had the printer or you had to write it out. I mean, that happened, or the typewriter, you typed everything. We do not process information the same way on various different medias. And so one big disadvantage that older people do have is not understanding the science behind what changes when we see it on a screen now that there's a generation that grew up with technology, and when we read something in print. There are a lot of differences there. And there are also a lot of technical things that go on with what I believe it was Stephen who was asking about ATS systems. There is a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of technical science behind how these things work and how they're processed. And there are over 200 of them, of these systems. So they're all very different. So there are a couple of different aspects that have science behind them that you really, if you understand it, you can use that to your advantage. And while you may not be able to eliminate conscious bias, like somebody just making the decision, I am not going to hire someone at this age. I mean, that's a totally different thing. That's just flat out discrimination. But you can use science to make these subconscious biases work in your favor. And that's what we try to do.
Can you give me some guidance, examples? Because again, I'm like you, and I got you by probably 15, 20 years. So I remember when fax machines first came out, right? And Teddy,
my grandfather told me about that.
Teddy remember, look, Teddy grew up with those typewriters. That typewriter behind him, see, he grew up in that. So Teddy's way older than I am. I mean, what, by a year, 2? I don't know.
And Al Gore stole the internet idea from me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
But so you're talking a little bit about some of this electronic indicators or what are some, help me understand, what are you talking about here?
So whenever we see information on a screen, we read that information differently. When we read something in a book, you know, we start from left to right. So that's how our eye tracks. It goes left to right and it comes down, it goes in a pattern. Yeah. When we see something on a screen, our brain automatically thinks that it is something that we should not read. We are scanning. Our eye is actually tracking at very different places than it would when we start to read something. And it's going to look for things that or different, right? So we see large blocks of text, we on a website, anything like that, PDF, anything. We're trained now to think, okay, I'm seeing this, I'm getting this information quickly, and I just need to know if this is relevant to me. So our eye starts to scan for small pieces of information, and it makes a very, very, very quick judgment on whether this is a high quality site or a low quality site. Very much like Google does, right? When Google ranks things, it's looking at exactly the same thing. How long are people staying on? And it knows how long people are staying on because people see information that is relevant to them. When we read something, when somebody hands us a piece of paper and says, hey, read this, we will read whole sentences for at least, you know, a good 10 seconds until we get all the information up at the top. But that's very different than how we're processing something that we're seeing online. So the same document, even a website, if you were to print it out, you would look at a website differently on a piece of paper or in a book format or magazine than you would if you were looking at it on a screen. And that is something that is very, very important to keep in mind, is how we are sending out information, because a lot of people think, oh, they'll print it. When was the last time somebody printed something and brought it to you to read, as opposed to them emailing it to you so you could open it up and see it on your screen?
All right, so an email is an email. It's straight up text. So all right, so you're back to square one back in the old days. So are you suggesting resumes need to have a different look and feel, and applicant tracking systems? I mean, you kind of have to fill in the field. So isn't that just straight up text after all? So help me understand here.
So so two things are going on there. The first thing that's going on is that, of course, you want your resume to have all of the information that the computer needs. Okay, so the computer is not something you can impress, all right? That's one issue. You send in your document and the computer scans it and it says, oh, here's these keywords, this kind of matches, I'm gonna send this over to Susie. It always stores it. Susie, the HR person, can always look at it. She can always pull it up, even if it doesn't get pushed forward to her. So the applicant tracking systems are made for compliance. They have to store your data. They do not disappear. So you do want to get through that, but you want to be mindful of the fact that once the computer says, hey, check mark, I've ranked you in the top 20%. I want to let Susie know about it. Susie is going to see what you have attached. They are going to see your Word document. They are going to see your PDF. They are going to get that information as well. So you're dealing with two things. So you have to understand the science behind the computer, and you have to understand how the human is also going to read it. These are two totally separate things that work together. So and that's kind of where professionals come in, is you want to have a professional who can make something that the computer understands and passes through nicely to most ATS systems. Not all do, but one big piece of a job search, which a lot of people overlook, and I mean like 95% of people overlook, is the importance of follow-up, because that resume needs to be seen by a person. So if you're just relying on this one system, or this low response rate technique is what you're relying on, then you're really losing out on the opportunity to use that science and use that psychology and use the tools you have to get in front of a person, because the ATS is not the end all be all. That's just a storage system is all it is. It's a storage system and a funneling. So these all sort of work together. And once you understand that big picture, it becomes a lot easier to take advantage of it.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a couple of things. One is follow-up is important, because again, you're just another in the stack. So there's that issue, and we can talk more about that. And frankly, I think that also speaks to someone's enthusiasm, passion, that kind of a thing, and it helps you stand out. And the other one, then I'm still a little fuzzy on, but I'm going to make up my own words here that I use when I talk to clients. You've got to have a resume that has enough of the keywords in it, so the ATS goes yay, and enough accomplishments so I can tell you're good at whatever you touch. But also you need to have curb appeal. And I compare it to Teddy's house. Teddy may have a great house inside, but if the weeds are covering his washing machine in the front yard and his car up on blocks, the weeds have covered it. People are not apt to want to go in and look at the house. It may be gorgeous inside.
Those are works of art, buddy.
Is that what they call them today?
They're works of art, man.
Yeah. Point being, there's got to be some aesthetics here, the aesthetic appeal, curb appeal. It says I can digest it. So back to what you said earlier, Catherine, if I have big block paragraphs on my resume, people's eyes will glaze over and they'll move on to the next one that's easier to read and to quickly determine, hey, this guy's worth my time. Let's call them in for an interview. So that's what I'm hearing. Am I on point with that, or something like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you bring up a great keyword. So one thing that is definitely backed by science is we want to make things easy for people. Like that is massive, because our brains want to go the easiest route. We don't it takes up a lot of energy for us to process these complex things, to dig out information. Just like if you read, you'd much rather read a little short ad than you would read a textbook on something complicated, because you got to focus. When your resume or your cover letter is bringing up more questions than answers, that person is they're gonna at least keep looking, not necessarily maybe disqualify you, but they will keep looking, and they're going to navigate. They're going to choose the people who have made it easy for them to see how they will fit into that person's role, because all people care about is their problem. They don't necessarily need to know everything you've ever done. You want to make it easy for them to see how you can fix their problem. And that's a big mindset shift for a lot of people.
Yeah, Teddy, you've got some chat stuff going on there that I think's kind of relevant here.
Yeah, John threw out just, going back to the conversation, being able to read content digitally versus print on paper, whatever. And he just commented on the fact that Kindle was trying to make their devices look and feel more like paper, or not feel, but look and read more like paper. And I get that. I mean, I think that was a great attempt by an organization to make a device that people could read better. Having been a Kindle owner, I really enjoyed reading on a Kindle more so than an iPad, which is now what I read on. But I can't carry a Kindle, an iPad, a laptop, a cell phone, and a pager, and can't carry all those devices. So the Kindle had to go away. So I don't know if any thoughts on that endeavor. I mean, it's just a great observation. I'm with John. So, but Katherine, I got a question in the obliterating the ageism, and maybe you're going to get to this, I don't know. In obliterating the ageism issue, one of the things that now I'm at 63 years old, you know, I'm 63 years old. I'm the 63-year-old social media strategist. There aren't many of me, you know? And so I made a decision when I started this business that I'm not going to hide my age. I am who I am. You know, you can clearly see by the war marks on my face and, you know, and the way I think and the way I talk that, you know, I'm not a kid. And I think that you will always have ageism. They ain't going to go away. It's built into people. The whole discrimination thing is built into humans, you know, innately. We have to manage it ourselves. And most people do know how to manage it well, and some don't. And so I just thought about this whole ageism thing, that wouldn't it be great if, you know, people would interview and, you know, or send in their resume and not be afraid of ageism and not be afraid of how people think. And if that company doesn't like you because you're old, quickly move to the next conversation. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, if you walk in somewhere and you can tell that these people, and usually you can tell by the way that the words that they're using, you know, their talk, their sentences, if you can tell that this is a company that just isn't going to be welcoming to you, or they just do not buy into your value, then yes, you're going to want to move on to the next place. Absolutely.
Wait.
Absolutely, quickly. And obliterating ageism is not, it's really not about hiding how old you are.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing should ever be about that. And that's where my definition of ageism comes in to play, is that ageism is when you're allowing someone, or you're maybe kind of feeding into the preconceived notions that they already have, and things are being taken from you or not given to you for that, you know, that you're being treated differently because of that. So the way that you obliterate something like that is you want to prove your relevance, and you want to sell them on your value, and you want to do what we call a good anchoring. So this is a place, Randy's going to like this one because this is Randy's science. So anchoring is our tendency to believe the first thing that we hear or see about not just someone, but anything. One big, you know, it's the topic of trending, right? Like misinformation. No one can understand why other people are believing things that have been proved to be false. Okay. And each side, in whatever argument you're having, just can't understand why the other side doesn't see the truth. Okay. This is relevant, not just in the news, but this is also relevant in your job search. The reason that people hold on to this is called anchoring. When we hear something, even if it is not true, it plants that seed. I mean, that's what we used to say, right? In the old days, like plant the seed. That seed is very difficult to unearth, because as soon as we anchor a fact in our mind, we see it, we believe it is true, we start to look for other things that confirm this. So that's our confirmation bias sits in. We want to be right, and our brain wants the easy, right, Randy? Like we want easy. So our brain says, you know what, this is what I'm going with. I'm going to find all the evidence that I can. And if I need to, I'll fudge things a little, right? I'll jump through some hoops and I'll make this believable. So to obliterate ageism, you take advantage of this by making that strong first impression and a value offer that convinces the person looking at it instantly and subconsciously, I need that person. Because let me tell you this is irrefutable. If you need what someone else has, you do not care how old they are. And that's all there is to it. And in business, it's about money, and it's about growth, or it's about staying relevant. And no one cares that you're 60 something years old. And in social media, if you master social media and they love your personality, you're going to get views, and you've got 10, 20, 30,000 people who are proving that that is exactly how this works. You'll be 80 still doing this. And as long as you're bringing value to them, they don't care how old you are. And that same concept will work for you in your job search, no matter how old you are.
Can I say amen, sister?
Yes, you can.
We're half past the hour, Teddy, and then we're going to continue on. So
Cool beans. Thanks for the reminder, Randy. Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Our special guest today is Katherine Miller. She's preaching to us ideas that we need to be thinking about and considering as we're challenging the ageism issue and obliterating it with our actions, not our inactions or our hiding it. Back to you, Randy and Katherine.
yeah, so help. I like it simple. So help. Let's let it be so Randy can understand. So I get it, right? Look, this is a competitive environment. So I'm a 60-year-old dude, all right? And I show up in front of you, and Teddy is a spry 35-year-old guy, right? He's on top of his game. He's got enough experience to where he knows the job. And I just happen to have another 25 years of life added on, as well as pounds over my belt. So I'm in there and I'm trying to sell value, and Teddy's in there trying to sell value. So I've got a mountain to climb because we both have value, but what is it that I need to be saying, doing, showing that will help tip the scales my way as the older guy who, oh no, he's too expensive. He's a dinosaur with technology. He can take my job. He's only taking this job because he can't find something better that's at a pay rate that he's used to, and all of those things that come falling out of the closet when it comes time to an interview. So what are some things that really, phrases, help me understand what are the actual do's that I need to do and say when I'm face to face with somebody?
Well, so there are tons of videos that you can watch on the right things to say. When I take on clients, what we talk about is getting down to not just phrases that you need to say, because in the long and short of it, Randy, that's not what's going to sell you. So you and Joe Blow over there, 35, being equal, I noticed that you come into the conversation assuming you are equal, okay? And that in and of itself is a problem, because what you're doing is you're saying, what do I have to offer that he doesn't? And you need to be walking into the interview already knowing what you offer that he doesn't, number one, and that is unique to you. So what I offer clients that other writers who are equally as capable as I've met many great writers, there's wonderful writers, is the science behind it. So for the job that you walk into, there is not a magic phrase that's going to convince people or address their doubts. That is incredibly individual. And you have kind of a couple of different issues going on there. First, you should have already had in your resume differentiating factors, right? So you already, the strategy is you need to plant the seed in the beginning so that they want to invite you in. Once they invite you in, once they say, Randy, I want to talk to you, there is a reason they think you're valuable. Your job is to go in there knowing why you're valuable, knowing what your angle is. And if you don't know what that angle is, then that's when it's time to talk to a trusted professional to try to draw that out. What is your theme? Are you a transformative person in all of your roles, no matter how different they were? Can you say to someone confidently, you know what I do? I transform organizations to the very next level. Yeah, Teddy can do the job. He's 35 years old, but I have a track record of taking things to the next level. And my understanding from the way this company is going is you could be up here and not just going on autopilot. Or are you a visionary person where maybe that company is stagnating and they need someone with fresh ideas? You can say, look at these ideas, and I've got these ideas for the future. Mm-hmm. You need to approach it from a different way. And that is very unique to you. And that's why I don't think there's anything wrong with the pat answers like, oh, I'm here to mentor people or I'm here to lead. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But you need to be very specific because you're talking to another human who has needs. They have to make sure that you can meet them. and that you're the best person for them. So the overqualification issue, that is actually, people think it's the same, that it has to do with your age, but it's not. The overqualification issue often comes up when people are trying to do what a lot of my clients are trying to do, and they want to step back. They want less work hours, and they're trying to step down. So it is a little bit of a logical error to think, oh, people equate age with me, you know, they're going to think automatically I'm overqualified.
Right.
People think you're overqualified if you're applying for a job that's a lower role than what you've had before. And when that is the case, then you do need to be prepared to come in and explain why. And I always advocate being open and transparent. I do not advocate sharing things that might be, you know, that are medical or that you aren't comfortable sharing, but saying things such as, you know, look, as you can see, you know, I'm an older candidate and these are all the great things that I've done. But as we age, our priorities shift. And here's where my priorities are. And I know that I've delivered this value before. I can create amazing value for you in this way. And it should, if you're doing it well, that should tie into your unique value offer, because all of this stuff, you got to do this stuff before you walk in. And that's where a lot of people make the mistake. They think that if they have the right answer, that honestly, everyone who's been in HR, like we've all seen the videos, it's all the same answers. We know where you got it. You need to really be speaking human to human, person to person. How are you better than Teddy?
Well, he's not. So let's talk about something. But Katherine, this is a problem that a lot of job seekers face, is that they go into an interview thinking job, and they don't go into an interview thinking, how can I help this company? What do I bring to the table that I can use to help this company transform, to achieve their vision, to be more successful, to overcome challenges, to move a department to another level, to become superstars, whatever the words are the company wants to achieve. Most people, many, not most, many job seekers in all ages, including this older generation that, you know, is now, and don't misunderstand me, I know it's real, but I don't think it happens as much as we charge that it happens, that we think we lost the job opportunity because of ageism, because of discrimination, because of, you know, overqualified. And the reality is just what you said. I wrote some of your words down, that we didn't differentiate ourselves. We didn't clearly explain our desire to be a part of their solution.
Yeah, to piggyback on some of that, and this goes back, because I listen closely, Teddy, to something Katherine said earlier on about that having that person kind of networked into the company. Let's face it, if I send an application or resume in and I have way more experience than what the rest of the field has, the odds that they're going to pull me out of the stack and want to hear my story, kind of slim. Let's be honest, it really is kind of slim. Because again, all of those things, this guy's too old, he's got too much experience, he wants too much money. So let me shop in the price range where I think I'm likely to find the level of talent at the salary that I'm willing to pay. So it's incumbent upon you to find somebody who can tap Teddy on the shoulder and say, hey, Randy's in your stack here. I know him. He's got a great story behind what he's all about here. You really need to talk to this guy. And based on that, Teddy will pull me out of the stack and he'll fall in love with me and pay me an exorbitant salary. And point is, you need to know somebody. If you're just a piece of paper and you out ads all day and responding, you might as well be standing out on a street corner yelling for a job.
No, they don't know you from Adam's House Cat, and nobody's hiring Adam's House Cat.
And why should they care? They don't know you. You have built no value in their eyes at that point, until or unless somebody says, hey, this guy's got some value. You need to talk to this guy. And we've had that happen a lot. And I'm sure you've experienced that. And Katherine, too, here's another thing, too. And I run into this sometimes with some of the more senior folks that I deal with. A leader is a leader. They can lead organizations regardless of industry, and whether it's recruiters or in-house recruiters, they tend to get very myopic with industry. Well, you know, this guy has worked in textiles, or, you know, they've worked in gadgets and we sell widgets. So we don't want to stretch beyond the industry. We want to be incestuous and hire within because I think it's a cover your butt situation. If this guy doesn't work out, well, we took a chance on him, but look, he came from our industry. What do we know? Any advice for folks as they get older and they look to break from maybe their past industry? How do they do that effectively?
So that's one that I run into personally a lot. In fact, I'm with a person right now that is doing that, but very high in one industry and really just wants to make a shift. And this one is one that I tell people, a transition into a new industry, you need to be very realistic, first of all, about where you're going into, right? If you need to do your homework, and if you need different skills, you need to go get those before you transition over, before you try to. So I'm going to assume in this scenario, this is for advice for people who have transferable skills in that industry, right? Like whatever licenses they need, they have, but they haven't worked in it before. So to do that, first, you need to realize that your job search is going to be extended by a few months because you are starting from a place of experience, but you need to start building your network and you need to start shifting your content strategy. Even if you aren't a big poster or you aren't a big commenter, you need to get onto a professional platform such as LinkedIn or wherever your audience is. And you need to begin to bring people who are in that industry in. So you need your allies, you need your network, just like you said, Randy. Networking is so important in your career search. But once you do those things, the other thing, when you are in the process of finding out what your unique value is, how is Randy different than Teddy, all other things being equal? If you have some outside help or a different perspective, what you're going to find is that there is a theme to you. We are all creatures of habit. We all like the same thing. My theme, I have worked in several industries, very different industries, law, construction, mental health, very different industries, and rose very quickly in each one of them. And it was because my theme is I always make things better and I take things that are broken and I fix them. So everyone needs that, right? Everybody needs that. If any industry that I go into, it's about the process. It's about bringing in the network. It's about fixing their problem, right? So when you step back and you look at your career, instead of focusing on the industry or even make sure that you don't use industry jargon specific to your old industry, right? Like translate that into something that they understand. This is big for military people as well, like transitioning to civilian. Make sure that you're speaking their language and that you're concentrating on building a nice template that immediately projects your theme rather than the industry you're coming from and the roles you've had. You want that story to really resonate with them. And for them, you need to overcome that perception that, oh, how do we know? Eliminate the doubt with the accomplishments, but position yourself, use the words that that industry uses, and absolutely build your network within that. So you'll have a longer career search there usually, but it will be well worth it. And if you know that, you can prepare for it.
Sure. We're talking with Katherine Miller of Notable Career Studios, all the way from Louisiana. And her niche is dealing with workers in the job search over age 40, particularly at the C-suite level and those aspiring to get there. And quite frankly, a lot of our clients at Goodwill's Professional Center are over age 40 and face real or perceived hurdles as they look to go about the job search. So we're trying to slice and dice this thing from a science standpoint. You've got a background in psychology, so I know you got Teddy figured out already. So you don't need to share all the dirty little secrets about what you've learned about Teddy, but I'm willing to listen after the show. So get a little dirt on him. So you've got that. Hey, you listed a few other talking points. We've got about 15 minutes. So we've got about 5-6 minutes or so, and then I'll ask you to wrap up and summarize a little bit on some takeaways you'd like us to have. But there was something that was mentioned in your notes ahead of time, and that is ghosting from recruiters.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
I had never heard ghosting and gaslighting and all this stuff. So this whole COVID thing has really opened my horizons, Teddy. I've learned so much, to include your own mute. I've never even thought of that before. So, but anyway, seriously, ghosting. I'm qualified. I spent 3 hours applying for this dadgum job and son of a gun ain't got no call back. So, or I've interviewed, and what's worse, I've interviewed and nothing. Don't hear it.
You struck a nerve, Randy. Michelle, I saw her banging on the keyboard when she said, "That's happened to me several times."
It has. So ghosting, ghosting is not responding when somebody asks a question. It's basically ignoring them or giving them, just nothing. Crickets is another way to look at it. All right. So what's going on behind the scenes, and what can we do about it? Ghosting from recruiters.
Okay, so here's what's going on behind the scenes, and this is I'm typically very straightforward in my answers. I do not sugarcoat things for my clients. These are grown-ups and they're going for big roles and they have big things. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Randy. Ghosting happens, and the clients that I have and the job seekers who do best in job searches are those who go into the search knowing that this is a possibility for many other reasons than a personal rejection. Having some distance in your job search is very difficult because many people, especially now that, we've got everybody, a career is a big deal, right? Like before, when there was one person at home, this was more a problem for men because men primarily worked. But as things have shifted, we have all really taken into part of our identity, our work, right? So when people don't respond to us and we've put out work product out there, or we know we're perfect for this job, that is a personal insult. And the response is very visceral and it's very deep and it's very hurtful. And it triggers a lot of fear that, are we not good enough, right? That imposter syndrome kicks in. So before you start your job search, you really have to do a little bit of digging and recognize the fact that there are many, many reasons that you don't get a call back. Is it rude? Yes. Is it always avoidable? No. Some of these companies are getting hundreds, if not thousands of people. There's a lot more people now, right? Searching. Every generation, there's a billion more people, it seems like, searching. And so people are overwhelmed. The job may have been taken away. It may not even be an active job. It might be something they're recruiting for. Not everybody is open and transparent. This is a fact of job searching. And so my clients that do the best recognize that this is not the same as dating. It's just like selling a house, Randy. You had a fantastic analogy there. If 5 people drove by Teddy's house and didn't like his washing machine art, Teddy would not sit on his couch and cry because those people didn't stop. He would
not anymore.
Not anymore. Not anymore, Teddy, because that's not you. Okay, you're better than that. Teddy is going to concentrate on attracting the people who want this house and who are most likely to buy it. And he's going to clean up his yard because Teddy is a go-getter. Okay. But when people do stop, that gives him a lot more mental energy to positively respond to them. And if Teddy's house looks good enough, more people are going to stop. So Teddy, being the responsible homeowner that he is going to go out into his yard and he's going to say, okay, why aren't people stopping if nobody's stopping? And he's going to clean up his yard and he's going to make that curb appeal and he's going to do like Randy did, his buddy who beat him in the interview, and he's going to find out what his value offer is. And he's going to only apply and only target buyers that want what he is selling. So a lot of people do that. Yeah. Like they'll do that gunshot approach, that shotgun approach, right? They'll say, I'm sending them out. I'm sending out hundreds of resumes and nobody's calling me back, or they called me, but they're not calling me back. And I often have people look and say, okay, they might have called you back and then realized during the conversation that this absolutely is not, there was a lot of misunderstanding about what role this was and what you're applying for. So they just didn't call again. And I tell people, look, this is not the time to sit there and cry. This is not dating. You're not committed. You keep moving until you get an offer and you accept it. You can continue to look until then. And the fact of the matter is that many, many things can be going on behind the scenes. Many things. It has nothing to do with you necessarily. If you're applying to many different roles and not hearing back, you're getting ghosted all the time, then I tell people that is when it is worth it to call a professional and see if they can at least do an audit and help you Is it the washing machine? Figure out what it is.
Well, and Todd brings up a good point, and I think we do need to clarify this. There are two different levels of, gee, I don't hear back. One is I send the resume like 1,000 other people, and I don't get any acknowledgement that I've sent it. Now, that's a simple fix in the ATS system where they can send out a generated auto email. So I get that. That's really not the ghosting we're talking about. Although for a lot of folks, they feel like, hey, I'm qualified. In fact, a lot of times what will happen is they'll get that auto-generated email that says, we've received your application, we'll review it, and if you meet our qualifications, we will be in touch. And I know darn well I meet the qualifications, and I still don't hear back. So, but the main thing on the ghosting, and this is part of what I'm going to share at the end here as we wrap up, is, all right, I've interviewed. How come I'm not hearing back from the recruiter after I've interviewed, and I can't even get boo from them? Nothing. No, yes, nothing. It's crickets. That's the ghosting part. And that's what really is, and frankly, it's unprofessional, but there's some reasons why, and I'll share those as my little wrap-up segment. But now we're at a point, I think it's about 9 till. Anything else from the chat box, Teddy, that we need to mention before we move into our final segment?
Don's asking about, perspective of a sterile resume. Employer is not given name, resident, or Don, apologize. It's selected. You were brought in with an introduction, sent into a room of strangers, given a challenge. The company representatives observed you. It's an interesting scenario. I'd like to have talk with you more about that, Don. But I'm not sure how to play with that question, but
you can
reach out to you.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and we talked about this a week or two back, dealing with biases with Carolyn when Rhodes was on, and also I think Art Gibble, as well as his retired CEO, talking about almost like the dating game where you get to hear them. They're in you can't see them, right. And you're not forming those visuals based on their number of wrinkles or lack of a full head of hair or how they dress or anything like that. All right, so we're moving into the final segment. So if you would please, Katherine, give folks some takeaways regarding obliterating ageism from a science. And I never once did the Thomas Dolby thing. Teddy, you'll be proud of me, from the science standpoint.
All right, so my takeaways would be that you need to recognize that you're talking to a person who has needs, and you need to tailor your resume and your career marketing documents to meet those needs and to answer that. Be very result focused, be very purposeful in your targets. Shotguns approach don't work. And briefly, to avoid ghosting to the degree that you're getting it, if you have gone in for an interview, look at your follow-up emails and look at your follow-up text messages and make sure that you are being brief, you're engaging on a personal level with them for a sentence or two. Brevity is key, and asking a question at the end of the email will get you a better response than just saying, I'm just following up on this, please call me back whenever. Try to engage them and continue that in the same way that you would a friend or someone else. The more personal you can be and the more relevant you can be for their problems, then the better you are with, regardless of your age, honestly. Make sure that you're up to date on the tech. Make sure that you're relevant in the age that you're in and for the industry that you're applying for, and you should do well.
Good deal. All right. Thank you, Katherine. Stick around for a few moments. Teddy?
Trying to get my focus back.
Yeah, Teddy's camera's acting up.
My camera was spazzing out.
Maybe it's old. It needs a refresher. Maybe it needs to reboot. Teddy,
Steve says thank you. And he's surprised that Steve is surprised that Randy and I have access to fantastic special guests like Katherine. Steve, come on, dude. We know what we're doing. We know how to grovel on the streets and beg people to show up.
A true story. Katherine, we've never met before. We talked, a couple, 3 months. It came solely through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'm not a job hunter. You're not a job hunter. I mean, yeah, I'm out there trying to promote our business, even though we're free to job hunters. But as part of doing that, you run across some pretty cool people that can add value. And so if there's ever anything we can do to help you, we want to do that. And you've been very gracious with your time today. I do want to share a quick story, maybe a couple, it won't take but just a moment. Why don't I hear back? I've interviewed, I don't hear back. I used to be a headhunter. That's how I got into this whole thing back in the back before computers and email, and we wrote everything down. In fact, Teddy will go roll his. Teddy, ready to roll your eyes? All right. So here's my notes. There they are. Now they're coming in.
Oh, look, you're using a pen instead of a crayon.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. So old school guy here, but no, actually on my computer screen, I've got some notes as well. So Teddy, I'm multidimensional. I've got 2 computer screens. I've got lighting. We're on top of things, but here's the deal. And I've been a recruiter. I was a headhunter, and I've also done internal recruiting for at least a couple of different organizations. We are middlemen or women. Sometimes we just don't have an answer because we can't get hold of the stupid hiring official to tell us anything. Right? We're left hanging. So I get call after call from candidate going, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, what do I do? Call back and go, "I don't know anything."
Right.
All that's doing is taking time away from me to make money or to do other things that I have control over. So should there be some acknowledgement from the hiring official that says, or the recruiter? Yeah, there probably ought to be. But you know what? To your point, there could be they could be working on a ton of job openings, each with multiple candidates in various stages of the process. So you're only 24 hours in a day. And I can tell you, most recruiters, their heads in the game, they're trying to do the right thing. They're good folks, but again, they're somewhat hamstrung just due to the sheer volume. They haven't heard back. And here's another dirty little secret. Katherine may be my top candidate. Teddy could be my second candidate. And we're prepared to, if Katherine turns this thing down, we'll go with Teddy. But I can't tell Teddy, "Hey, hang on, you're number 2 in line here, buddy. So if our top candidate bails on us, we're okay with you." How's that going to sound? So I've got to tell Teddy, "Hey, man,
Used to it, Randy. I'm used to it.
we're working on it, man. Well, if I hear something, I'll let you know." So we're trying to keep him warm on the back burner. So those are a couple of reasons. Basically, it's we don't know anything. If we knew, we'd tell you. Then we quit getting phone calls from you. How does that sound? So I'll leave you with that pleasant thought. And just remember, most recruiters are real good folks. They're trying to do the best they can. And yeah, you're going to get some bad apples like you do in any industry, any job function. But most of them, their heads in the game. They're trying to do the right thing. So just be honest with them. Ask for honest feedback. They may not give it to you, but the value of a recruiter is such that they can ask some of the questions that you can't just call the company and go, "Where do I stand?" Because they're going to lie to you. Right. Hopefully the recruiter can cut through some of that fluff and give you a straight scoop. So I'll leave it at that, Teddy, and then throw it back to me. And we'll tease about our next show.
Hey, Randy, straight on. I've got to get my picture. I need a picture. Thank you. Got it. Here's my story.
Okay.
You did good. Caught you. Katherine's sitting there just calm, talking straight to the camera, and you're all over the freaking place. I'm like, I can't get a picture, man. Hey, here's my story. Here's the quote. If you heard this quote before, if you haven't heard this quote, you're too daggone young. But the quote says this: "You are you. Today, you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you." And I would wager that most of you know that Dr. Seuss said that. You may not know what year he said it, but here's my point of that statement. The point of that statement is this: don't try to be something different. I'm a 63-year-old social media strategist. I'm not going to try to be a 40-year. Randy's got the book. It's all blurred out in the blur, buddy, but you only what?
You're Only Old Once by Dr. Seuss, a book for obsolete children. My son gave it to me. They came to visit at Easter time. And I could read it to you, but we'd be over time, and I don't have my reading glasses on here. How's that? But it's got big print and nice illustrations in here.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Randy's a picture book guy. Hey, so my point is this: that don't try to be something you're not. And if someone doesn't want you because you are you and you're honest and you're sincere and you're transparent and you want to be helpful and you show yourself as relevant, you know the right words to use, you have the right conversation, and they don't want you, look, I'm not here to talk legal. I'm just here to talk life. Move on and move on quickly. You only get one journey in this body you have. Make the most of it and don't get all bent out of shape take out legal, don't get all bent out of shape if people are going to be idiots. Move on to the next conversation. Maybe that doesn't solve problems for you, but it sure as hell makes me feel better every day when I remind myself, they don't want me. I'm good with that. I'm going to the next discussion. Randy, who's our next guest, buddy?
Natalie Kessler. She works in human resources, and she is going to talk about something that's pretty relevant, and that is tips for managing a remote workforce. And she's got them all across the globe. So how are you going to manage that? It's a stage that we're all in, really, to some level with the pandemic, and I don't see that changing greatly.
It's not going to change. Yeah.
So you're going to have workers scattered throughout the country or across the globe. How do you continue to engage and retain those folks and keep them, in a high performing mode? So we'll cover that next week with Natalie Kessler. Make sure you join us on the 16th, 11:55 a.m. for Behind the Scenes, when you get to learn more about the life and times of Teddy Burriss. And we don't want to miss that. Again, Katherine Miller, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katherine. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show today.
Notable Career Studios, and if somebody has questions for you, Teddy, I think you put all of her info in the chat box, and also we'll repost this on my LinkedIn as well. I'll include your website, so if people do want to reach out to you, they have a way to find you in Louisiana. So thanks again, Katherine.
And actually, she's going to be in Richmond soon, Randy.
She will be, absolutely, coming up north. Good deal.
You all have a great week. See you later.
Thanks for joining us. See you next.
So welcome.